Okay, welcome back to Soul Invictus. I just wanted to, make another video. I'm gonna pick this up and start doing more videos. Just been doing a lot of research, a lot of undertaking of things, and it's been kind of hard because there is, I don't know how many pages there are in the Bible specifically, but there's thousands of pages. So, reading the Old Testament, reading the New Testament, trying to put it together, trying to see the picture understanding of things. I'd have to say that ultimately what I've been able to understand, and I do want to make some more videos. I probably will do more of that. I just put a lot of effort into that, and it takes a while. I would heavily recommend you reading this yourself as well, though. But the thing is, sometimes when you read it, you might go into a crash mode. You might read something you don't like, you just don't think just makes any sense, and you just crash. And it could take you a month or two or whatever to come back to it. I know initially when I was younger that happened, and it's kind of hard because sometimes you read a book and then you get to a part it's like, well, this isn't really all that interesting, so I'm going to put this down for a while and come back to it. I kind of understand the Bible's a whole nother animal, literally, and as far as really the message that I want to say tonight, and really just get the message out, get the point across, is that what Jesus was trying to do versus what, and the Old Testament is a little bit funky with how some things are written, or what God did, the goods and the bads, and you might be like, there's no bads. Well, I'll get into that, but what Jesus had to say, which is what freaked out a lot of the old Jews in the past, was basically, you know, um, being peaceful and kind and all that to each other. The golden rule: love God with your whole heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And the fact is, if you just take out the "and" part in there, which I'm thinking it's possibly the real consideration of the whole thing, is you take out the "and" part, love God with your whole heart, mind, and soul, love your neighbor as yourself, because really, ultimately, we are little pieces of what people consider source, God, however you want to, you know, make that. And there's a lot of people that think God is an alien, and or God doesn't exist. And then there's a lot of people that think God exists, and there's all kinds of things, people believe in, they don't research much. They're just like, I read this one paragraph and I believe this. Okay, it's great. Maybe you should do a little more research, a little more understand. And the thing is, there's a point where some people, they don't have the, I don't want to say that they can't get the intellectual capacity to understand, but they just don't right now. They don't right now. They don't have the intellectual capacity right now to understand um, what they're going to get themselves into if they start reading it themselves. And this is a massive book. It is quite literally a massive book. So that's reason why um, religion exists, is to help teach the masses. The book. But the thing is, religion doesn't necessarily always teach everything, and you'd think they do, but like even in Catholic Church, you go to there, they'll get through the whole Bible, I think, within a year, but they'll jump, skip, and hop back and forth through different chapters, so they're never really, it's not a consistent read through where you can be like, I wonder why that happened, or how does this relate to my life. It just really doesn't happen there. You might be like, yes, it does. No, I've been a Catholic for most of my life, and I went to church. Even when I was younger, I went to church like daily with my mom. When I was a lot younger. So, but even later, I went pretty much every single week, and listened to what they had to say. And then the point is, the pastor will come out and like give his presentation as to what he thinks it means. But yeah, read I've read the New Testament 5 times, the Old Testament twice, and I'm reading through it again. I'm on Chronicles right now, so it'll be a third time that I'll be getting through there too. But the point is, if you want to know about God, you have to do the research yourself. I mean, you can come here, you can go to other people and watch what they have to say, but don't get too wrapped up in that. And it's sort of it's funny because it's almost like disadvertising myself in a way. And I even I said before in a past, like, once I finish this, I'm just done. I don't have to like go over this again. But I think the fact is, you know, people do want to get your take on it, because the fact is everybody wants to get someone else's take on what this could mean. Because maybe the fact is, because here's the thing, let's say that I have a better understanding of how to repair and take care of mechanical things. Someone else may not. I wouldn't say necessarily like I'm a doctor or anything close to that. So I'd rely on somebody that either is more of a apothecary or a doctor or somebody in that sense, because I'd be like, this just, it blows my mind. I don't even know where to start. So I can understand how some people would be like, this is just too much. I can't process all this information. This is really hard. So the fact is, if you're going to read something like this and you feel like it's important to you, not just to you, but your soul and the people around you, like, what's going to happen? Are we going to live forever? Are we not going to live forever? Here's the point. And this is basically what Jesus says, like, with Peter, like, not picking up the sword. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. You become a particular thing in life, and this is what you are here. Whatever you choose here can have repercussions, very dangerous repercussions. So living by the sword, dying by the sword has serious repercussions. As far as like, the thing is, I've been thinking a lot lately, and I think from what I've read and what I understand is, I'm not really getting off topic, but I think, people talk about the sin against the Holy Spirit, and I think that's literally just disbelieving anything. You disbelieve anything. And like, if, let's say you're an atheist, you disbelieve everything, and you think you're going to go to nothing, there's nothing for you after this. You believed so hard that was going to happen that when your death day comes, you become nothing. You give up every idea that you've ever had, and you just vanish. You become nothing. Now, do you become food for dark entities to harvest upon you as a nothing being? Possibly. Do you just disappear into nothing? Possibly. But I think that's the thing that we get in life, is we get a lot of people that tell us this and tell us that. And pretty much my message tonight is I'm just going to say it right now, but I'll talk a little bit about that, is what Jesus is saying is that as far as like, love God with whole heart, mind, and soul, your neighbor as yourself, meaning that we're all little slivers of the creation source. And if you treat your neighbor the same way you want to treat yourself, the same respect, the same caringness, the same love, you treat your neighbor, your direct neighbor, the person that lives next to you, the person you meet on the street, the person you meet at the store, the person you meet at the theater, the person that your friends, their family that's nearby you, you treat them all the same way. You want to be treated. You're exposing your heart. You're exposing your inner self to have a connection with. You're exposing the heart of the source, the creator. What people would say is God. The reason that I kind of like go back and forth on it is because there's even some Jewish understanding that some of the God part in the Old Testament wasn't God, like the breaking of Babylon, and falling down like that. Some Jewish sources aren't sure if that was God. They contend it, and like I could possibly contend it too, but either or. Point is, your heart is important, and to share your heart and to keep it strong. I mean, there's going to be forces out there that are going to try to fight you and try to destroy your heart source. They will, and they're out there, and they do this. And sometimes they find ways through friends, sometimes they find ways through family to come at you in a really negative way, say something really terrible to you. And you just have to rise above that. you have to rise above that level. Later on, they might come back and be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry I did that. I don't know why I did that." It's because the evil entities want to influence easier people to prey upon you, to attack you. And I think with what some people think, it's very true. There's a lot of forces out here waiting to, you know, the devil's like a lion waiting to devour you. You know, so I think it's pretty true in a lot of ways. There are a lot of bad things out there that want to eat your heart out, literally. Well, maybe not literally, but in a spiritual sense. Like they want to destroy your inner child, your imagination, your feelings, you know, your empathy. They want you to be more like an algorithm, like an AI, or do as I say, not as I do, you know. And I think like kind of my message here is that it comes down to control. If there's entities or forces or things set up in such a way that wish to totally and completely indoctrinate or control you to the point that you can't feel, and you just give up to this AI system or this way of living that's under a complete control base without having a voice, you're giving your heart up, and you feel, and that's the reason why I think a lot of times people just feel sad inside and they don't even know why. It's because they've given up so much control to these things that aren't even benefiting them at all. You don't have to let all that. I'm not saying you have to go on a big civil war and fight everything, but you can literally like ignore it and be yourself. You know, power comes from within the heart, first and foremost. Things can be analyzed and put together, and you can make an AI system think and try to reason and go back and forth. But as far as it wanting to be compassionate towards you or others on its own free will, and the same for you, I mean, that's a hard thing. That's something that's specific for us. So, as far as other entities go, these other dark entities are really just parasites. They don't care about each other, and they don't care about you. They want to drain you, they want to latch onto you, they want to vampire you, but they don't care about you. You are a food source for them, like a mosquito. Most of these dark entities, they could be as big as mosquitoes. They just want to drain your blood. They want to suck your blood. That's where, you know, we get all the lore with the vampires and, you know, werewolves and things like that, and all these old, you know, what people would think are myths. It's also possibly contending to the point that these other spirits that are there are real in a metaphysical sense, that they do want to drain you. And you have to just stand up for yourself, fight it, you know, push it off you, let it go, and don't let it consume you, because a part of it is also is they want us to be angry with each other, so we fight each other, so we don't really see the bigger picture. And if you get caught into that and you're constantly fighting somebody else all the time without ever, like, you know, using your heart or like rational reason and treating somebody like your neighbor, they they're binding into you, because you know that's actually a strategic thing, is to divide and conquer. It's a very strategic thing that you know, I play a lot of strategy games, and I know this is a big thing that does work. If you divide and conquer something, you break it down into two halves. If you do that again, break it down into three halves or four halves or whatever. At that point, it's easier to attack all the smaller halves than it is the bigger half. So if, and this is sort of, you know, key to life, and I think it's really comes down to the fact that it's like what I said, it's heart. It's your heart. It's the human heart that these entities do want to take over and destroy. Now, as far as like my understanding about the New Testament and the Old Testament and all that, you know, like I was mentioning aliens and things like that, and you know, whether the Old Testament God is, it's still Like, I've already mentioned this a bit too, but I think it's a little bit, it's somewhat confusing. I mean, there's some parts in there, like, I'm even reading in Chronicles, like, the old Lord that was ordering David around killed 70,000 people to prove a point to David. Now, was that God? If it was, oh, that's kind of scary. That's like, would I do that if I was God? Now, I know this isn't going to really be like, everybody's going to be like, whoa, what are you saying? I'm just saying, if you want to be loving and compassionate, I follow more of what Jesus had to say because he tried to open us up to the point that we're not really there for each other, you know, and most of his message was to basically tell us that we need to be there for each other because what we do directly, you know, influences our future, not just here, but, you know, once we leave. This body's basically like a shell, like a seed. You know, there's plenty of descriptions in the New Testament about, you know, the seed and what kind of seed you are, where you land in life. Now, can you replant yourself and move somewhere else? I think you can. You know, because we have feet. Seeds that fall from trees typically don't. But if you basically become the kind of seed that, you know, gives good fruit, you know, you're able to give this fruit off. You're doing these good works and you're kind of showing that this is the kind of person that I am. If you're not doing anything, you're not showing anything, you know, and nobody in the afterlife is going to be like, well, what did you do? I mean, I don't know. Just sit there and watch YouTube videos and Netflix all day. Is that all you did? Played games? Played tons of games. Yeah, you did that. You went out and you know, had a bunch of relationships, had all that kind of stuff. You went out partying. You did that. That's great. So you had a good time. That's good. But what did you do for humanity? What did you do for your neighbor? What did you do? I didn't do anything. I didn't care. And then why should we care about you? You know, you're gonna in the afterlife. You're gonna be met with familiar friends and family. I mean, this in the afterlife, it's us. It's us. You know, the people on different levels. You could be like, well, I'm gonna go to be with God. I mean, um, you basically have to be almost, you know, completely perfect to get to, you know, certain levels in heaven. It seems. I mean, I could be, you know, off my rocker here, but I'm pretty sure it's almost kind of like that. It's like a hierarchy of where you got to and where you're at. I mean, and like Jesus said, like, you know, he is being the servant here, you know, and in heaven, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So it's almost like he's basically describing a sort of hierarchy as far as like what you've been able to do and what and who and what you are. So it seems more like the more you take here, the more greedy you are, the more, you know, you just want everything, the more you weigh yourself down to the point that you haven't really been able to rise up to any higher level. You haven't really done anything. So I think the point is like, you kind of have to, you know, be yourself, you know, share your heart, share your love with your neighbor and your friends and your family, people that most of society, and the reason why society is still sort of, I don't know if they're fully trapped in like a hell-like state, but they're trapped, like society and its standards are trapped in this pyramid system of, you know, this dweller entity on here is in control, and you get rewarded for being bad. You get rewarded for screwing over your fellow friend, your fellow man. You go to higher levels typically. Most people are at the top. Everybody thinks that most of them are narcissists. It's probably true. It's probably the case. But you can't like be super kind and loving and friendly and not have some people just step on top of you and walk over you, you know, for that to get to a higher position. I think in some ways it's kind of true. Like, people live wrong. they live wrong most of the time, and they don't think they're living wrong, but they are, because they're not doing anything for other people. They're finding ways to be above someone else. And I think that was another reason why I think personally, and I think I'm onto something here, but I think Solomon, I know people will get upset with it, but I think Solomon was possessed. People say that Solomon had the 72 keys, where he was containing demons. Some people say that the demons were just like a version of the zodiacal thing, or, you know, something to do with that. But the fact is, he did talk to ghosts, he did talk to spirits, you know, and his whole thing was he was going to become wise from the Lord. But in reality, if you're talking to these spirits, these entities, the fact is, these entities are here in a disembodied form. They never got to leave. So that tells me that basically they're either demons or people that, you know, never were able to ascend and get out of this earth realm. So, you know, he has contracts with them, and the Lord said he's going to be wise. Because of his wisdom, he's going to be granted riches and this and that. And guess what all that did? It was a bunch of enabling. Went right to his head. And he became greedy. And he had all these wives, and he had all these things, and it just destroyed him. What God gave him destroyed him. So the thing is, you get to a point in life where you think you're at the top, and because this is all written down as a hierarchy system in that sense, like he got to the top, and now he's got all these things, and what ends up happening? He controls demons. Now here's the thing: even with controlling demons, this much I do know: you shouldn't invoke another entity to control it, because guess why? You are a slave master. You are forcing them into slavery to do your will. You're no different than a slave master. You might be like, oh, well, these are demons, it's okay. Any entity you force into a type of slavery, guess what happens when you cross that line? Guess what happens here all the time? It's the same. That's the reason why a lot of the older people say same as above as below. Now this could have a double meaning to it too, as far as planets and the earth and all that, I guess, possibly. But the fact is, everything balances out. This is the reason why Jesus said, like, settle all your debts here. Make sure you have no debts. You know, judge not lest you be judged. So whatever you do here will also, in reverse sense, be done there. So if you, and so in the past, when you know, America, I mean South America and Europe, and they all had slaves, and I'm not just saying it was just black people. You go thousands of years beforehand, and people were slaves because they owed someone some debt, and they lived servitude of slavery for a while. It's in the Old Testament. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm just saying you're going to have to repay that. So whatever you're doing, and this is the reason why I think it's just a terrible idea for anybody to try to summon or control a spirit or create an entity or control it, because you are making a slave. Jesus even says in the New Testament, it's like, what would you rather be, a son of God? It's also, you know, quoted like a son or daughter of God, or a slave. And how long will a slave be needed, or a servant will be needed? You know, how long will that be needed? I know it's not, I know you said servant instead of slave, but, you know, in context, you're either going to be one thing or another. You're either going to be close enough to being like family, or you just did work for them for a certain amount of time. And this is the reason why I think when you go to other people and you have them do all the work for you, you pay them to do that work for you, that's spiritual work for you, you're not doing any of that at all. So your soul hasn't done any of it. So it's just kind of like, you know, if you go in the afterlife and you didn't learn a particular skill, you know, on earth, well, you still don't know that in the afterlife, or you didn't put the effort into trying to learn or teach or do anything. So then, in the afterlife, if Jesus is saying, don't have any debts in the afterlife, it means that you're not going into your own personal heaven. You're going to meet everybody else that already lived here and anybody you know. You're not going into your own personal ideal of whatever. Everybody will be there and watch you go up. They're going to be there too. So that's why people say they see their relatives, they see their friends, and stuff like that. It's because this is a shell, and your spirit lives inside of it perfectly. The death of the shell does not mean the death of the spirit. But if you let other people convince you that's true, you will let other entities put you into an imagined state that you don't exist anymore, or that you are supposed to go to hell, or that you are supposed to go to this particular thing like Valhalla, or you're supposed to go to this particular thing. If you let other entities give you an imagination of a dire situation and they lead you into this, you'll go there because you've let them influence you to make your reality the way that they wanted to make it. And you know why this is true? Because this happens right now. Other people influence you into buying this, into going here, doing that all the time, because they want you to experience part of their paradigm. Now, you might be like, no, it's not true, it's not true. Yeah, everybody wants to do something good. But when some people get too big in their britches, they expect everybody to follow suit. And the fact is, every single thing, all the deadly sins, it's because you went too far with this thing. You went too far with that thing. That's the reason why balance is so important. You don't eat all day. You don't poop all day. You don't sleep all day. You don't talk all day. I mean, some people try to, but you don't not talk all day. You don't socialize all day. You don't stay completely by yourself all day. You try to balance all that out. And I know some people have a hard time with some of these things, but this is the thing. You have to try to find a way to balance all these things. That's why balance is important. That's why balance is important. That's why some people, they believe in the chakras and things like that. That's all different lights that make one solid color, but they're all in a sort of a balance. I'm not saying I want to uphold that as my dogma. Personally, I don't really do that, but I'm just saying that's another more, I would say it's more of a spiritual, esoteric understanding of knowledge too, is that you want balance in your life, and I think everybody does. Everybody wants some freedom and they want some balance. So you'll see people that have gone too far with something, and you recognize this in your heart. You may not say this in your head, but you recognize this in your heart. You're like, people have gone too far with this. They've gone too far with their greed. They've gone too far with their sexuality. They've gone too far with, pick your poison. They've gone too far with something. This is a part of the 7 deadly sins. This is when you have a disconnect with not just your spiritual side, but your heart. Because your heart has to be, what encompasses your heart is your feelings of empathy and your imagination and creativity. If people have suppressed this, then you are not able to be yourself. You are controlled, and you're not able to have an opinion. You're not able to express it, and you're generally probably not feeling all that great. And it's because of this. A lot of people that want to get into the greed part, they don't want you to have a heart. They want to control your heart. They want you to give them love and compassion because they don't have it within themselves. And I think that's a part of the reason of the parasites, the dark entities and all that, is because they don't have a core system of love within themselves, that they need to feed off of it in order to sustain life. Jesus talked about the living waters to the woman at the well. I think it was the Sumerian woman. And what he was really saying was, she has too much sexuality with too many different guys. She needs to find the one husband that matches up with her and be with that person. She's over sexualized. There's too much sex. You might be like, oh, sex is great. Yeah, in moderation. Everything's good in moderation. And this is something that I've learned through my life, and I think a lot of other people as well have learned. But you have to be able to moderate things, and there's always going to be things that are going to be hard to do and things that are going to be easy to do. Now you might be like, no, there's always going to be hard. No. You have a strength and you have a weakness and you have a lot in the middle. Now you might be like, I don't have any weaknesses. Well, then as soon as something hits you that you've done that has hurt other people, or you have to come to terms like, man, I didn't realize I had that. There's your weakness. It could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be pick your poison. It could be anything, really. Everybody's going to have some kind of strength and weakness, and it somewhat has to do with your past, but it also has to do with how you're currently living right now and how you decide to live. So you have to make the choice. If you have a weakness, find an answer for that. Find help. Find the way to dissolve that weakness, to move forward. So that's the thing. And you do have strengths too. Some people have like iron will strengths about certain things. I'm not saying everything, but certain things. You might have an iron will strength to, let's say, for example, if you decided not to smoke, you just don't smoke. And because you're like, I just don't smoke. I don't want to have the I don't want to have the craving. I don't want to have the attention. I don't want to have any of that. You just put it off to the side, and anybody asks you, you're like, no, I don't do that. And they don't try to pester you, and even if they do, it has no effect. So can you turn all that into strengths? Yeah. You just have to keep it up and, keep it in your mind, because as much as you have your heart, for the most part, people, the way society's built is to force your mind to be at the top. They want your mind to be at the top. But the fact is, you do that too much and you lose hold of your heart, you lose hold of your empathy, you lose hold of your love, compassion for others, that life doesn't mean much of anything. And the reason that this is sort of promoted and pushed a lot through a lot of media is to, no, it's their fault. No, it's their fault. And it's just always a back and forth. They never decide, oh, maybe I was wrong. And you know why? Because they want to keep fighting. They don't want to fix something. They want to fight. And they get you dragged into this stuff. Politics do this all the time. It's a back and forth thing. It swings so far back and forth that you're like, I need to be on this side and fight for this all the time. Maybe you want to fight for a particular issue. I get it. But don't let it carry your heart away to the point that you no longer exist. You are just a drone. Just me made to be swing back and forth on this pendulum that seemingly never ends. You can change things, sure. But you gotta not get carried away with it. Live your life like where you, this is my personal suggestion actually, is live your life where you try to balance everything in your day. And you might be like, it's hard. Write down a schedule. Check it off as you go through the day. Do little things like that. If you want to put in your iPad or your phone or whatever, do this and write it. It's a simple thing to do. And the thing is, I think that's really what, that's kind of my message here. And I was only going to make like a small video, but I ended up going on for a while because I feel like I have to kind of describe this a little more seriously. And I'd like to go over and talk about some stuff. And I know not everybody's going to be on board with, a lot of people believe that, the Old Testament, New Testament, those are the same people. I pretty much don't think that's the case because from a strategic standpoint, the old Roman empires can literally just sandwich two different things together and be like, now make friends. And then everybody else is like, oh, okay, I guess that's what they were talking about or whatever, you know. And then from strategic standpoint, that can literally happen. So because it was an emperor that did this, makes me a little wary. Plus the fact is reading the new and reading the old, these two guys don't really sound alike. Jesus talked about his father all the time. And he's constantly telling the Jews that they're following the devil or Satan. Just makes me wonder, like, when were they doing good? It's like they were always doing bad all the time. Like they could never figure it out, you know? And then, like, because the reason is, I kind of understand, you know, Jesus was trying to get us to a point of enlightenment for ourselves so that we could basically be that and more. Jesus says, you'll do greater things than these. Why would we do greater things than these if he is the main guy and nobody else is? No, he said we can be sons and daughters of God, you know, or his father, you know, or the creator. We can be sons and daughters of that. We can actually spread love and peace and kindness without all the hate. And I think that's an important part too, is like when you meet somebody, you want to talk to them, if you don't jump in there with a bunch of hate and like you're just ready to go, you know, you're ready to smash them in an argument if they say something wrong. Why would you do that anyways? Why? What is the purpose of that? What are you getting? You're gonna get your ego filled. That's what people get when they're waiting to go and smash somebody in an argument. They're getting an ego boost. That's I would consider like vanity. That's vanity. Yeah, that's right there. It's vanity. So that's another one of the sins. It's like, I want to get my ego boost by smashing somebody in an argument, and it's like, that's so okay, but you know, like you're not helping the person understand what you know. And by doing that, that makes them angry with you, that makes a fight want to start. So vanity actually can create the argument itself. And then the other person wants to fight. And then, you know, you constantly want to stand on top of each other to figure out who's right and who's wrong. And other people get involved, and you just created a situation. You basically just created a traffic jam, a mental traffic jam. Because your ego, and this is what happens in traffic too. Somebody is like, I gotta be in front, and then they just swing around and they fly in there, and someone gets angry and they're like, no, you're not, and then they try to drive up to him, you know. So it's almost the same thing. I've seen this in traffic before too, but it's almost the same thing. It's vanity. You want to get your ego boost, you know. When people are, I'm just saying, maybe not you necessarily, but when people do this, they want to boost their ego, and it creates the argument, creates the tension, and nobody gets anywhere. Nobody gets anywhere. So the fact is, it's not just like I can tell these other person not to do it. You know, it'd be nice. You're like, hey man, don't be such an asshole. Okay, you know, it's not gonna happen like that. You have to almost, and the hard thing is you have to be on the reciprocating side. For the most part, this is kind of how this always goes. You have to be on a reciprocating side and be like, hey, I understand you're angry. I understand this is this. And how about we talk about this rationally, normally, you know, without all the anger, without all the drama. Can you not be such a drama queen for a second and just talk to me rationally, you know, whatever, you know, just to like try to help situate the situation, you know, situate the situation. That's a great way to say it. I don't know. But I think ultimately, I would say as far as the way life goes and the way things kind of should be in a very simplistic sense is to hold your heart with regard, you know, and be that kind of light for others. There's a lot of entities that are trying to destroy our heart, our love, our compassion, all that. Don't let them do that. And the way to not let them do that is to recognize when things are going to go wrong, when things are going to happen. Be like, okay, I understand that this person is either A, possessed, B, just not thinking right, or C, you know, they don't know you and they have no compassion for you. Which a lot of the times you might be like, possessed? Only crazy people that are like floating and levitating and twirling their head around and spitting out peas are the possessed. No. Some people get possessed when they just decide they want to do vicious, vile things to you, and then later on they come back to go, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. You know why you don't know why you did that? It's because you weren't mentally there when you did that. Something was feeding off of you, giving you a lot of dark, negative energy, and you were utilizing that to vomit out the same stuff that it also does. Vomit, and you might be like, no, that can't be true. That can't be true. Well, why do people do some of the bad things they do? Why do people say, these mass murders say the devil told them to do it? Or why do some people say God told me to do this, or this angel or this entity told? Why do they say that? Because they're mentally not there. Something else has hijacked them, whether they gave permission, which usually that's kind of how that goes. You give a sort of permission to these things. That's why I'm saying, like, with capturing demons or controlling them or that sort of thing, no, because then they can be your master in the afterlife. Everything's going to balance out. That's why also in the New Testament, or with Revelations, it says, he's going to come here, he's going to make straight the mountains, carve everything out. He's going to balance the plains. Balance. Everything's going to be equalized, balanced. So if you are, spewing too much hate, in the afterlife, somebody's going to get you for that. They're going to come after you. So you have to, like, balance your accounts. Just like in real life, you have your account balanced. You're not negative. You don't want to be negative. You want to be positive and trying to grow more. It's the same thing with your soul. Same thing with your soul. You want to have money saved up for retirement for later so you can have fun. Guess what you're doing with your soul? Same thing. So when should you do that? Right now. Then that way you have a lot of things you can talk about, like, hey, I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this. There's no way, and you balance yourself out. You make your life mean something, so that the fact is, and not just for yourself, but you set an example for others. And then more people do this, the more, the pass it on thing, it goes like that. If more people see negative energy and negative things happening all the time, guess what happens? More people do negative things and negative energy, because it's not just that I've influenced you or someone else. It's people influence each other in a very emotional way. And you might not copy the exact same thing I said, but you might get a feeling. It might feel that way. You might feel more empowered, or more courageous, or more full of love, because I'm trying to help spread that. But if I bring out a bunch of fear and a bunch of anger and a bunch of hate and violence, guess what? You're going to start feeling too. You're going to start feeling those emotions too. So, fact is, the reason I'm saying this is because I do play a lot of strategy games, but it comes from a strategic standpoint. And for the most part, almost everything starts with some kind of thing where, because in the past, you see so many movies, you killed my father, you killed my nephew, you killed, and then what ends up happening? Person wants revenge. So hate and anger really don't cancel out until both parties are dead, or everybody affiliated with is dead, or, so hate just begets more hate. That's why Jesus said, live by the sword, die by the sword too. But if you live with love and compassion, you can grow in a way that's helpful for you and for others as well. So that's why I just wanted to touch base upon that. I know I kind of went for a while. I don't know, I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know some, whatever you want to talk about, go right ahead. Hopefully we can have a civil discussion about it. I know, I have my understanding of what I've read, because the fact is I have read a lot, and I read a lot of other scriptures and a lot of other things like NAG Hammadi, and I've read other Norse mythology and other, what people call mythology isn't really mythology. It's the past. It's just It just, if it doesn't bring $1 to a rich man's plate right now, it's meaningless. So that's pretty much how society goes. If it doesn't bring the buck to people in higher standings, they are just gonna be like, we don't need to deal with that. And that's sort of the truth of the matter, unfortunately. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. Let me know what you want to talk about. And as far as videos go, I'm going to try to do a little more of these per week. I did kind of miss out on a few videos of a few things of trying to combine that. I got a little bit crunched for time, and I just really didn't get to it. So as far as where I need to pick up from, I'll have to try to figure that out. But I hope you definitely go ahead and read. I would recommend the New Testament a little bit more so, personally. Want to know about Jesus a little bit more? Read the New Testament, get through it, try to understand it. I wouldn't focus so much on what happened afterward, but what I see with so many things is every time they try to read about what Jesus said, they're like, well, let's go back to Samuel and see what that had to say, or Deuteronomy. Let's read from there and see what Jesus didn't say anything back there. He said it right here in the New Testament. Why are you going all the way back to the Old Testament all the time? A lot of people are like, well, they're both the same. Not some of the original Christians that were out there that were contending it initially. Catholic Church did attack the Cathars, did kill a bunch of the Cathars a long time ago. Not all of the Catholic, now most Catholics have been in, and a lot of religious factors have been in this for so long, they haven't read a lot of the old factors. But if you really want to know what Jesus is saying, read the New Testament. I would recommend John, because John does have a better connection with Jesus than it seems the other three do, which actually the other three, the Synoptic Gospels, most of it comes from one of them. So most of those Synoptic Gospels are just one gospel, and the other two have some varying factors to it. But John seems to have a little more information as far as certain things go. But that's all I want to say. You want to know what Jesus said, read what other people wrote directly that he said, almost as soon as he said it. As far as like that goes. So that's what I would recommend. And the thing is, like, from what I understand of Revelations, what I understand of a lot of Jewish understanding of things is a lot of things are dreams. They had this dream, and God spoke to them and said this. Revelation sounds more like a dream to me. Doesn't sound like a direct thing. Seems more like a dream. It's a dream-like state. John could be describing what he's seeing specifically, but it seems more like a dream-like scenario. And so, yeah, I know a lot of people are like, I got to read Revelations to know what the end of the times is. Guess what? From my understanding of everything I've learned, end times is when you die. Some of it could be talking about a particular timeline, but most of it's basically, and that's all dreamlike scenario too. It's probably describing some afterlife and things like that too. So Revelations is kind of hard to fully get a grasp on, but the point is what Jesus said specifically. A lot of people just want to like get an understanding from the past or jump all the way to Revelations, be like, well, now I'm gonna know. Jesus already said it in the New Testament. He already said everything. Every single thing is based upon how you treat others. How you treat others is how you'll be treated when you go to the new realm. That's it. End of story. That's it. You love and you're compassionate to others, well, you're going to be in a great place. You don't care about other people. You want to step on everybody. Everybody's a little vile worm to you. You want to destroy everything. Guess what? People aren't going to respect you up there very much. You might make it, but you might be the doorman. I don't know. You might be like, well, I'm next to Peter. I don't know necessarily if Peter's the doorman specifically, but this is what I've been able to understand. It's all about forgiveness, love, compassion. Forgiveness was a big, big, big key thing that was in there. So I'll wrap it up tonight. I made a long enough video. I hope you liked it. If you did, let me know somehow, in some way or another. And other than that, I hope you have a great night. Have a good week. And I'm gonna see what I want to do for next week here. So get on top of that. And other than that, take care.